Mendy Drywater is a criminal, says hacker Kinston. Mendy and his Drywater kicked a disabled girl down the stairs, says Rosemary Fernandez. Mendy Drywater adopted a dog just to abuse it, say the Nature Club members. But who is Mendy Drywater? Mendy Drywater has never received such hate before, so why is he getting so much hate now? It all starts with Zach, Massachusetts. Zach loved to venture out into the underground temple near his house. Nobody else knows about this temple, except for his brother George and his sister, Finita. Zach Mass ran around finding treasures worth millions of dollars, but he never told anyone, not even his brother or sister, who have gone there many times. But how does this relate to Mendy Drywater? Mendy adopted Zach and Zach's little brother and sister at the age of 4 years old, and they have done everything together. Mendy never thought that Zach, George, and Finita would keep secrets from him. Zach Mass was not the original name of the dog. Mendy gave it its name as a joke. One sunny day in April when Mendy was 10 years old, Mendy found out that Zach, George, and Finita had disappeared. Tracks led outside and into a small cave near his house in a small forest behind the house. He went over to investigate and crouched over and crawled inside. He crawled for about a minute until he reached an area where he could stand properly. He looked up and saw a big temple taking up almost the entire cavern that he was standing in. He walked up to it, and a big sign was plastered on the wall above a rocky door. It read, "Temple of the Hidden Body of Nolan Chans." He couldn't help but think how unprofessional the name of the temple was. Slowly, Mendy looked around the temple looking for his little dog and its brother and sister. He found small pots of gold coins and 5 leaf clovers down there. The walls of the temple were made of thick, muddy yellow bricks. He searched and searched but got tired. He decided to drink muddy water from a small pot left on the ground. He continued until he reached the other side of the temple where he saw another path. He crawled through the narrow path and somehow ended up in math class at school. Somehow the cave was underneath the school. He had accidentally broken the classroom floor to get up into the classroom. Luckily no one was there. The teacher had left to pick up the class from lunch. Mendy didn't know this. He thought there was no school today. He didn't know that it was April 1st and that hacker Kinston had pranked him the day before. He looked around and found his 3 pets, but just then, the teacher opened the classroom door and his classmates poured into the room like an avalanche. From their perspective, it looked like Mendy had his dogs dig a hole into the classroom to possibly steal something, or to not be marked absent or some other reason. "Mendy Drywater, what is this?" said Miss Teacher. Mendy Drywater wanted to mend the past and dry the muddy water on his clothing in this moment. Mendy decided to quickly run back with his 3 little munchkins and tripped on a blue pot filled with brown water with mud inside. Mendy got lost in the temple for a while before finding Nemo. Nemo Glaris had been down there for years. Mendy Drywater dried himself off, and he sat down and talked to Nemo. Nemo was a skinny 18-year-old with ragged hair with brown pants and no shirt. Mendy suspected that his pants weren't brown before. Nemo told great stories and Mendy stayed and listened for a while. Nemo hadn't seen sunlight for years. He has never found the exit. "What have you been eating?" asked Mendy at some point. Nemo said that he would eat rats, mice, bugs, and his own feces. He drank contaminated water every day. Mendy Drywater was so invested in his stories that he completely forgot that his school was after him. He stayed for another hour with Nemo. As soon as he got home, police officers gave Mendy a paper with a bazillion different charges. At least that's what it looked like to Mendy. It was actually only 3. He was put off the hook from going to trial only because he had never done anything like that. It still cost $1,300 in total. His dogs were taken away, and his parents grounded him for 2 months for emptying their wallets. He was also suspended from school for 2 weeks for damages to the school building. At school, everyone had heard that Mendy had broken into the school using his dogs. Everyone started to criticize Mendy for using his dogs to dig into the school. There were many theories for why he had done it in the first place. When he returned back to school, Hacker was all that was on his mind. Hacker Kinston is Mendy's best friend, so Mendy was scared of what Hacker might think. He walked into his homeroom classroom, and Hacker immediately stood up from his chair and ran toward him at full speed and jumped. Mendy, trying to be trendy, threw a bendy pencil into the air before crouching down and dodging Hacker from breaking his head to 1,000 pieces. Mendy came back up and then caught the bendy pencil in his hand, but because bendy pencils bend, the pencil bended and stabbed his wrist. Hacker had smashed into the wooden door, crumbling the wood to sawdust. Mendy shed a tear before running out of the classroom, yelping in pain. As he ran down the stairs, he accidentally hit a girl in a wheelchair down the stairs who was waiting for the elevator. Many people saw that. Mendy Drywater almost tripped as he ran into the nurse's office. The nurse, immediately overwhelmed, calls an ambulance. At this very moment, Mendy wished that he could mend the past and dry the tears from his eyes. After staying in the hospital for a few weeks, he could go home, but going to school was not something Mendy was looking forward to. Mendy felt as if he were famous in a bad way. Everyone at his school knew what he did. They didn't know why, but they did know that Mendy Drywater was a criminal. Would things be the same again? Yeah, actually, after Mendy graduated from elementary school just a month later, he went to a school in a different town and nobody knew his history. 6th grade was average for him. While in 7th grade, Mendy met a new friend. His name was Mandy Freezeflame. Mendy started to write stories with Mandy almost every day after school. On December 17th, Zach passed away. Mendy Drywater cried for 2 weeks straight. He went blind and could never see again. Unintentionally, he broke the world record for longest time crying. 2 weeks after he went to the hospital, Mendy Drywater stepped in a liquid that was slimy and cold just outside his house. It was a strange orange paste. He would have pulled away then, but Mendy was pulled down into the slime. He then fell until he landed on a soft pillow. He was unconscious, though. He slept peacefully on the softest pillow that he had ever touched. Mendy then woke up. What he saw was incredible. His mom had brought him breakfast in bed, but Mendy looked around and realized that he was never blind and he never fell into a hole. It was all a dream, and he has to go to school now. Mendy wished it was real. He didn't actually have a world record. Mendy drank his cereal and ate his milk and then cried after seeing on the classroom app that Hacker Kinston was joining his class. Mendy had to dry water from his eyes to prevent him from going blind for real. His dog had never passed away either. Mendy couldn't help but think that Nolan Chan's body temple had something to do with this dream. This was when Mendy decided to play hooky and went back to his old town. He walked 1 hour to get there. He walked the streets and found his old home. The house had a small sign that said, "For rent, contact Maggie Helen to rent." A phone number was at the bottom. The house looked empty from the outside. Mendy walked around the house and found the small forest where he had committed multiple crimes. He explored the cave and found the temple where the hidden body of Nolan Chan's was. Suddenly, he heard a strange sound. He ran and could still hear it. He was so scared that he tripped and fell into muddy water. When he got up, he saw Nemo squatting and facing the other way. Mendy was overjoyed to find him. After his vision got used to the dark, he realized that he was not doing exercise, but instead releasing waste directly into a pot. Mendy looked away faster than he ran from the noise. Nemo hadn't even heard him. Mendy soon realized that the noise was also coming from Nemo's direction. Mendy Drywater wished he could mend the past to not have to be in this situation and dry the muddy water he had fallen into. Mendy didn't want Nemo to think Mendy was spying on him, so Mendy stealthily walked away. Mendy waited a few minutes before coming back. Mendy and Nemo talked more. Mendy asked him about his dream and said that Nolan Chan's had a similar story to the events of Mendy's dream. Mendy then checked his watch and realized that school was going to end in an hour, and he had to leave. "Take me with you," begged Nemo. Mendy couldn't hear him as he had already ran out of there. Mendy walked around the temple to find the exit, but he accidentally tripped again. When he got up, he found himself in a big room. None of the other rooms were so large. Suddenly, Nemo taps Mendy on the shoulder. Mendy wasn't expecting that, but he wasn't frightened. Nemo Glaris walked in front of him. Their only light source this whole time had been glowing mushrooms growing all over the temple. This room had cracks of light coming out from the street. Mendy had a lighter to see the cave the other time, but he had it. He doesn't have it. Nemo looked back and said, "Are you coming?" Mendy got up and walked along with him. Nemo Glaris stops in front of a coffin. "This is Nolan Chan's." Mendy stood silent. "This is his temple that was meant to be hidden, but it's only a few feet under the surface," said Nemo. Mendy didn't know what to say. "I still don't know how nobody else has found it," said Nemo in a confused tone. "How did you find this?" "Have you told anybody?" asked Nemo to Mindy. Mindy got ready to say something. "I just came in through a cave and I haven't told anyone," said Mindy. "Show me the way out. I've been in this damn temple for years." Mindy got ready to leave when Nemo gets closer to the coffin and opens it. Inside was a skeleton. Nolan Chans had completely decomposed and was swimming in a pool of brown water and 5-leaf clovers. Nolan Chans once had a dog. When the dog died, Nolan cried for hours and almost went blind. Bees started to come out from the cracks. Mindy didn't look back. Mindy left the temple and crawled out of the cave. Mindy looked at his watch and school was a few minutes away from ending. Mindy ran home with the speed of a muddy cheetah. It took him 30 minutes to get home. He got home 20 minutes later than the normal time that he gets home. As soon as Mindy stepped into the house, he was face to face with his mom. "You're 20 minutes late. That means you're grounded for 2 days." His mom was strict when it came to coming home earlier or later than normal. Mindy was sent to his room with his 3 little munchkins. Mindy didn't know how to spend those 2 days, but before he could start thinking about it, his mom busted the door open with a cup of water in her other hand that she then threw at Mindy forcefully. Mindy was drenched. "Mindy, can you please come here? I want to show you something," said Mindy's mom while foaming at the mouth. Mendy Drywater wished he could mend the past and dry the water. Mindy slowly stood up, but then tripped over a pot filled with brown liquid. Now he was drenched in water and strange brown liquid. "Mendy Drywater, why did you skip school?" yelled Mindy's mother. Silence filled the room. A horrible smell also filled the room. "Forget about having any technology this month. And if you make it a second later than usual, your punishment will intensify further than you can imagine, Mindy. Do you understand?" "Sorry, Mom, I understand," responded Mindy. The next week, Mindy was nervous about Hacker, but Hacker was absent for a week before actually showing up. Mendy Drywater went to school one sunny afternoon, and there he was. Hacker Kinston and Rosemary Fernandez had joined the class. Rosemary was Hacker's girlfriend. Even though they were only 10, Rosemary and Hacker were meant for each other. Mindy didn't know that Rosemary was coming too. Rosemary saw Mindy brutally push a girl in a wheelchair down the stairs back in their old school. Mindy and Mandy decided to avoid them for a few days. Hacker and Rosemary didn't even know that Mendy Drywater was in the class. While at lunch, Mandy went to the bathroom while Mindy stayed at the lunch table. Suddenly, a potato-head kid smashed a window in the cafeteria. Mindy and Hacker had the same thought to take advantage while everybody was distracted, and they left the cafeteria to wander the halls. Somehow, they didn't walk into each other. Mendy Drywater walked around the 4th floor and found a ring on the ground. Hacker Kinston walked around the 2nd floor and found a tangerine on the floor. Mendy Drywater put the ring on and was teleported to South Korea. Hacker peeled the skin off the tangerine and made the peel into a tea. He took a sip and was teleported to South Korea as well. Mendy Drywater took off the ring and was back at school. Hacker walked around an empty street with skyscrapers on all sides. The tea didn't teleport with him. Hacker started crying and was suddenly back at school. Mindy quickly went back to the 2nd floor where the cafeteria was. Mandy ran into Mindy in the halls. Mindy didn't want anyone to know about the ring. Mindy tried to hide it, but Mandy knew that Mindy was hiding something. Hacker suddenly came around the corner. Hacker still had the tea. Hacker was fuming that Mindy was there. So much, in fact, that Hacker threw the hot tea at Mandy and Mindy. Rosemary suddenly came around the corner with a burger in one hand and a burrito in the other. Rosemary immediately ran after Mindy after she saw the ring in his hand. They ran and ran until they looped back into the cafeteria where people were fighting in a room with glass shards scattered around the floor. Mendy Drywater seriously wished he could mend the past and dry the tea on his pants. Mandy was left alone with Hacker in the hall. They silently walked back to the cafeteria. Mandy suddenly stopped and turned back after Mindy texted him about the situation in the cafeteria. "Where are you going?" asked Hacker to Mandy. "Take a look at this and tell me that we should go back to the cafeteria." Mandy showed Hacker his phone. It was a picture of the rioting cafeteria that Mindy had sent him. Mindy was pushing people around to get through, effectively making more fights break out. There was a full-on riot in the cafeteria. When the bell rung, everyone who wasn't fighting rushed out of the cafeteria. This exposed the people who were fighting, which were then all sent to detention. Rosemary was in love with Mindy's ring, but Mindy knew the power it had and didn't give it to her. After school, Hacker went out with Rosemary on a date and Mendy Drywater hung out with Mandy to write stories. While in bed, Mindy has fever. Her mother gave him a pack of ice. Mindy is still punished, so he wasn't allowed to do anything. Mandy was downstairs when suddenly the TV screen started casting an emergency broadcast. A hurricane was approaching the area. Somehow it was undetected and was reaching the town. Mindy's ceiling suddenly crashed down and he was punctured several times with thin bits of metal and got splinters from wood bits. Mandy ran upstairs and took away the debris of metal and of wood. Rain started to pour into the room. Mendy Drywater wished he could mend the past and dry the rain. Mendy decides to visit the mall directly behind his house to avoid the rain. Mandy stayed home to wait for his dad to arrive. Mandy's phone wasn't receiving any signal, so he didn't know if his dad would still pick him up. Suddenly, a sudden event happened. Hacker was at the mall too. Hacker still felt a little shocked and confused about Mindy's actions at his old school. The mall had an emergency shelter, but Hacker refused to go in. Mindy, however, wasn't suicidal, so he went in. After 2 minutes, Hacker started banging on the latch. Mindy was upset, but the mall employees let Hacker in. They waited a while until they couldn't hear rain anymore. It lasted about 2 days. When they opened the latch, they had magically been moved to Mindy's old town. It turns out that the shelter was actually a trailer of a truck with a bulletproof exterior. The truck was meant to evacuate people from emergencies. Mendy took advantage and went back to the cave behind his old house. As he got closer to his old house, he noticed that his house was gone. A whole intersection had been put there. More houses and new buildings were being built on the new roads. The cave was gone. Mendy Drywater knew that the cave must still be there. It must have been covered up. Mendy took out his handy mini shovel and started to dig out the grass next to the road. After digging for 3 hours, he reached the cave. Mendy couldn't see much as he peered into the hole. Mendy decided to grab a light source, but before he even had the chance to get up, he slipped and fell a few feet down into the cave. Mendy got up and found himself just outside the temple of Nolan Chance. He was drenched in muddy water. After a while, he found Nemo. Mendy told Nemo what had happened. Nemo Glaris talked about Nolan Chance and how his story is similar to how Mendy's life is going right now. Mendy soon realized that he hadn't even told his mom that he had left the house in the hurricane the other day. Mendy Drywater soon left to use the bathroom but realized that there wasn't a bathroom in the huge temple. Mendy went back to Nemo to ask him, but apparently Nemo just used the pots that were all over the temple. Mendy wasn't too happy to hear that, so he went to a Korea to use a toilet in a restaurant. He took off the ring and looked at his watch in the temple and realized how late it was. Mendy was ready to leave, but soon realized that the cave that he usually used was blocked, and he left his tiny shovel next to the road. The school had the hole in the class filled, so that wasn't an option either. Mendy used the ring, but he got lost in Korea. Mendy came back and he stayed with Nemo, where they wished that they could mend the past and dry the water. They spent countless days taking turns going to Korea, all while waiting for somebody from the outside world to find them, but no one ever did. The end?